UKLC is presented by Barclays and Curry's PC World.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going into our second game of the day, Barrage versus Demise. Now, Barrage, obviously, they are not in a great spot right now. They have lost, well, they lost 4, then they won 2, then they lost 3, and then they've won 1. But they did just beat Envision. And I think there was some moments in that game where you really thought that there was a glimmer of hope in Barrage. Now, I think that might be because Envision have been playing a lot worse over the last few weeks. But I think Barrage have got some elements of a team that could definitely take a win off Demise in the right scenario. But then you look at Demise, and I think maybe I would have said that more confidently about the Demise of old, where it was Rifty Rage split pushing to try and win the game. But now we're looking at a Demise that has revitalized, reshaped, and completely reconfigured themselves in a way that they look like a very, very powerful team in the current tournament. And so I feel like it's probably still Demise favored right now.
I think it's going to be a close one. I think I completely agree with you. Barrage, to me, look like a team who are greater than the sum of their parts. I think they have good coordinated play, a good setup around objectives. I think the thing that ultimately holds them back is a little bit of an individual skill, some misplays coming here and there, and often teams can compound off that and just snowball. But I've seen consistently from last week's games where they're actually doing better map-wide plays than some of the stronger teams who are ahead of them in the league. So for that reason, I have a lot of confidence in them. But Demise, we saw a pretty strong start where Rifty was really a defining factor, and then they've slumped heavily where they weren't able to find that advantages and teams were negating Rifty. But now they've actually looked good and they've completely shifted again. And I think this is the way you want to be when you're down in wins, when you're struggling to get on the board. They've gone for a very easy to execute front to back style with Rifty on tanks and a ton of engage. That has been basically their operation in the last two games. They've just played a composition which is very simple to implement, similar to what we saw from Munster in that last game, and they've put more reliance on Proxy in the bot lane as a carry compared to Rifty, and I think it's worked really well. We saw Proxy on the Ashe and he actually looked really solid, really consistent, and I think we can see this being a new Demise who should be able to actually challenge some of the stronger teams if they continue like this.
And I think what really impressed me about that reshaped Demise is that even on tanks, Rifty still looks like Rifty. Like if there is any kind of advantage that Rifty can push in one of those top lane 1v1 matchups, even on a tank, he'll look for that opportunity. And he's got such good decision making in team fights that you still feel the influence of one of the best top laners in our tournament. I think that's really helping out Demise. But then Barrage, I look at them and I think there are moments where this team pops off and looks incredible. When Afro Boy's got a good matchup, when KDO is on his Ezreal, for instance, you think, wow, this team looks like insane. And some other times they just completely flop over. But something that has been impressive for me is I think Akaz has looked better. And I think going up into this matchup versus Demise, Akaz needs to be at his A game. We always talk about it in terms of top lane matchups, when we're talking about Demise. But Akaz has looked better and better. And I think this is going to be really important for Barrage as a roster.
Yeah, I agree. I think Akaz needs to be solid here up against Rifty, because even on the tank matchups, he will be challenged. And we did see a little bit of a rough performance from Akaz last week where he did get solo killed on the Wukong by a Zac, which obviously wasn't optimal. But I think when Akaz has a good matchup, he can really be quite handy with it. And I think Barrage essentially just need to find a lane of playthrough and look to execute on that, because Demise, there is definitely windows to punish them. And I think as much as it needs to execute composition, you can still look to challenge them. But I do think this is going to be Demise favored. And I think the burden really is on Barrage. If they want to keep themselves in this competition, it's still possible, but they are right at the fringes. They need to take every win from here on out if they're going to maintain their sort of spot in the league and contest for playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're probably pretty safe, or at least should be safe from relegation, depending on... actually, is it bottom 2 spots for relegation, or is it bottom 1 in the UKLC?
I believe... I'm not completely sure.
I will get double checked. Don't worry. I'll get our tournament admin to double check. But irrespective, like you said, wins are really important at this stage in the tournament. And if they even want to have a chance at playoffs, they need to win the next 3 for sure. And that starts with Demise. So let's kind of temper down here. I think the draft is going to be very telling. I want to see if Demise are sticking to what they kind of built on the previous weeks, whether we're going to see them reflect back on a different style that we saw from in the start of the season. But that's all going to happen in draft, and draft will be coming up after a very short break. All right, guys, we're into draft. Barrage Academy on the blue side and Demise on the red. Red is always one of those sides of the champ select where we think is going to like slightly tilt towards Demise favorites because they have that ability to play for the sort of counter pick for Rifty, but that might change now because of the difference in style that we've seen from them. It's going to be the Heimerdinger ban. We did see KDO, I believe, play Heimerdinger in the bot lane. I think that's actually what got Barrage their win versus Envision in the previous week, and that's going to be taken off the board straight away in champ select.
Yeah, which is understandable. You just don't want to deal with something like that where you don't have necessarily a ton of practice against it. It's not a pick necessarily for proxy, so you just take it off the cards. But it does put a lot of pressure as a red side team. There's a lot of picks that you tend to just not want to leave open at all. Whether like Syndra, Karthus that are still super powerful. There's things like the Ashe right now, the Callista, obviously the Set. There's a lot of power picks that could be taken first rotation by Barrage. So you ideally do want to try and thin them out as best as possible. And have to throw a ban at a Heimerdinger just hurt more on red side compared to blue.
Absolutely. It's going to be the Graves banned second here, and like you said, there are still a lot of flex picks, a lot of strong power picks open and available, like that Syndra as you mentioned, and we'll see. Set goes down here. Actually interesting that Barrage would ban Set against themselves. It's something that Akaz has played a significant amount of, but Akaz kind of has been a tank player. Like, we haven't really seen Akaz outside of maybe that Wukong game. We haven't seen too much from Akaz in terms of the way of carry, but we will see. It's going to be the Ashe.
It's just interesting to me because we're seeing essentially triple jungle bans. Like, I know that Volibear and Set are flexes, but we see those 3 bans away from the jungle, and we could just end up seeing like Lee Sin Elise because Afro Boy plays Lee Sin heavily, PFI plays Elise heavily. It could just default to those with 4 jungle bans already. But Barrage, they would take that Karma. Great because it's a flex picks. Great because it has priority when you play it in the bot lane, and obviously a ton of scaling as well to set up your AD carry. So they won't have the Ashe on it because that got banned away, but it does mean they can set whichever carry they do take up for a ton of success.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of priority. Even in the NLC, we saw some... Oh, wait a second. Karthus was left open. This is the first time I'm going to get to see it in a competitive setting. It's going to be Karthus locked in for the Demise roster. I assume for proxy, it's going to go with the immediate lock in the Nautilus here. Do you think this is bot lane Karthus? It's the lane that we've expected to see the Karthus picked up in when it does get locked in.
Probably, but it is flexible. Obviously, he got buffed with some compensation nerfs specifically to jungle, so he isn't much stronger than jungle than he was before, but it can still be flexed there. You still have that option, and it means that with 4 jungle bans already, you have some that you can potentially put down in that lane. Now, they've taken Ezreal Karma, great, really heavy harass lane, and has a ton of range to sort of keep the Karthus at bay. So I don't think this is a great lane matchup for Karthus in terms of he's going to get harassed down a lot, he's going to find a lot of trouble. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter because he has so much wave clear, so much priority that he can achieve. He is fine just scaling up. So a lot of options here already for Demise. And then we're seeing the Sejuani for Afro Boy. So
wow,
bit of an interesting one. It could suggest that we might see a melee mid laner that syncs up well with that. Definitely a melee top laner to make use of that passive, but just an interesting one to bring out here as a jungle pick, especially as now, if Demise want to, they can put the Karthus into the jungle, and it's a pretty safe matchup. It's not like you're going to get pressured heavily by a lot of the other picks that could cause issue.
Yeah, that is not a jungle pick that we've seen a lot of in the current meta either. That might even be the case now because Kai'Sa gets locked in. This is something that I believe Perks really likes into, I don't know if it's into the Callista or into the Ezreal.
Into the Ezreal.
Yeah, so this is something that we've seen Perks play a lot of, and it's been a pick that has been floating around as a potential Ezreal counter. That's really the only time that you do see Kai'Sa in the meta. But like you said, it now unlocks Karthus to be a bit more flexible in terms of where it's going to go. That's going to be a Zoe ban here, so a couple of blind mid laners being taken off the board. And so I'm guessing we're going to see Orianna. So a lot of mid laners actually being targeted out here for both teams.
Yeah, but I think this favors Demise a bit more because they can obviously pretend they're going to flex the Karthus mid. I don't think we will see it, but by keeping that up, they can maintain it until the later rotation, or they can just essentially put a jungle. I mean, that's the thing. The Sejuani pick is so off to me. It gives the Karthus a really free time. It's so weird to me. And essentially just meant they could say, yeah, we're going to take Nautilus Kai'Sa. And in this situation, the reason Kai'Sa does so well into the Ezreal is because you land a Void Seeker and you can essentially just seek out a 1v1. You can just say, right, well, I'm going to dash on you. I'm going to trash you in the 1v1. You can't escape me because I have the movement speed and obviously the ult. And it makes it very difficult for Ezreal. And on top of that, you actually outrange him and outpoke him with your Void Seekers. So just a very rough matchup for Ezreal. Obviously, the lane is going to be favored towards Ezreal Karma, but Kai'Sa Nautilus has great all-in potential. So that's the kind of scary thing that could potentially show up.
So this is interesting. Ilaoi gets banned. That's a really niche ban. I know that we have seen some Ilaoi in the UKLC, and I know that we saw Rifty play the Ilaoi specifically. That to me makes me, at least makes me very well aware that Akers is thinking of just a very good blindable tank in the top side.
I think
it's going to be the...
Maybe just more for a Rifty specific thing, it feels to me. But I think already having a Sejuani as a tank, Ilaoi can always benefit when there's people getting up close. And Sejuani is a great target already for the Ilaoi just to use that Eon and then look to take a stronger fight. Now, would you see a melee mid laner with the Echo, which we expected to see with the Sejuani? So that's a good point. It also does well into the Azir, so set themselves up well in that regard. But still not convinced yet by Barrage's draft. Go see what they bring out as this final pick.
I imagine like, it just seems like one of the safer top laners. Obviously Wukong available if you wanted to go for it. Something that we've seen him play a lot of as well. It will be the Wukong here. So Akka's going for a bit more of an aggressive bruiser rather than just giving up a straight tank matchup here. And we'll see what Demise go for. I would love the Kennen. I think Kennen makes sense. It's going to give him the side lane advantage. It's plus, it has the split push potential. It has the team fight potential. It's a bit more flexible for Rifty in general. But if it's, I think this is another one of those matchups. Yeah, this is great against the Wukong, right?
Okay, gonna go for the Jack. So essentially, he had a lot of options. Malphite and Mordekaiser have been like the best two picks into Wukong generally, just because they shut him down in the laner phase, and then also in team fights, they handle him heavily. This is more of a side lane sort of pick. Obviously, Jax can deal with the Wukong in the 1v1, and then later on, he's going to be that side lane threat. And they have so much power just to hold off Barrage. They have the Azir, they have the Kai'Sa. It's going to be very difficult to deal with Demise in the later stages. And I feel like Barrage need the momentum going into this game. They need to get a good start. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned, because they have the likes of a Sejuani, not obviously the most early pressure jungler. But he did get some recent buffs. And I think if he's finding the right skirmishes around Akers and Wojak setting up the passive, maybe there's a chance. But I think Demise came out ahead in this one.
Yeah, and also whenever you run side lane pressure, you've got double TP. Azir can push side lane. Even if you go 1-4, Karthus is great for that because he can immediately apply extra pressure to a side lane despite not actually being there on the map. Karthus is a great jungle pick and a great pick in general to facilitate anybody looking to play through side lanes. And when Rifty's on this Jax, that's what you're expecting him to do. You're expecting Rifty to be able to pressure out these side lanes. But interestingly enough, Dan, this is a bit more of a throwback to the previous version of Demise, where Rifty would be playing more split push focus, more 1v1 focus. And when we interviewed him, he said, it's always my option. If I have the option, it's always my prerogative to go for something that I can look to 1v1 someone with and just have skill expression. And that's probably what he's doing here versus Akers, maybe just looking to really stamp down on that matchup on the top side of the map.
Yeah, and I think different teams would have gone for the Malphite there or the Mordekaiser and used those to sort of solidify that team fight, deny a lot of pressure on the backline because Wukong dashes in, you Mordult them, or just the Malphite's great disruption. But this is just showing Demise, they still have Rifty, they still have him as a tool. They want to have that split side lane threat, and that's important because essentially we have two side laners here for Barrage in the Echo and the Wukong, who could have been problematic later, but you're not actually too concerned about them because now you have the Jax who can answer one. The other one is obviously going to be a bit closer to the objective you're playing around, so you can potentially just send the Azir there to pick it up. You should be fine in that regard. And just branching off from that Karthus point you were making about the split pushes, it also massively favors Kai'Sa. If Kai'Sa's ever diving in for a 1v1 in the Ezreal, having the Karthus ult as well just means it was already won for the Kai'Sa. It's now just a complete guarantee. And it means you can play quite a sort of pick-oriented gameplay with Demise when you find windows for proxy to go in. You have great team fight. You have the side lane pressure to match up the 1-3-1. Really, the burden here is on Barrage. They need the momentum in this game.
Okay, so let's flip that question. Let's look at it from the other side of the coin. If Barrage are to expose weaknesses in this Demise roster and this composition in general, what do Barrage need to do to take a win?
I want to see invades. I want to see Wojaks being freed up from mid lane. I want to see him and Afroboy pairing up, kill PFI, go top lane, dive Rifty. Bot lane, I want KDO and Alpaca to maintain priority when they can and not get all in, because that is Alpaca and KDO win this game, win this lane, 100% of the times where they don't get all in. And obviously that's a big if, that's a big if they don't go all in. Well, against Kai'Sa, not what you can expect to be. But if they can maintain their distance, they will just be able to harass Proxy and Chromax. So ultimately, for Barrage, it's going to be very mid-jungle focused because jungle, a Sejuani alone isn't strong enough to really take over a game, but you pair that up with an Echo, you get the Echo fed, you get him roaming, and I could see Barrage's side lanes having a lot of success as well. And then you hit those big spikes in the mid game, that's where you can look to close it out. Whereas Demise, they have a lot more time on their side, they have a lot of scaling elements, and it will just get to a point where they have answers to everything that's thrown at them by Barrage, as long as one of those answers is an 7,000 gold lead.
Actually, I kind of wanted to ask that question as well, because I did get clarification from our admins. It is the bottom 2 teams in the UKLC that will need to fight up against the top 2 from the UKEL in a best of 5 series for promotion and relegation. So Barrage, they are only 2 wins off tying up with Demise and Envision. A win here would throw them a massive lifeline to get them off 7th position. I think Bulldog all but done. They're kind of down there. Then they're not getting out of that position. But for I think for Barrage, really important that this is a win that they can potentially take.
I mean, if they win this game, they're a point behind Demise and Vision. They're equal with both of them in head-to-heads. Very reasonable that they could catch up with them. If they lose this, they cannot catch Demise at all. Demise will always finish the split ahead of them because we have 3 games left next. That would tie them in scores, but Demise would be 2-0 in the head-to-head. So if Barrage want to keep themselves with a good chance, they have to win this. If they lose this, it's still possible, but they are very much reliant on Envision losing all of their subsequent games, which is never a good win condition. You always want your spot in the league to be dictated by your games, not other people's. So if Barrage win this one, they keep their destiny in their own hands.
And it's definitely one of the more aggressive compositions that we've seen Barrage draft. I actually want to kind of turn my eyes onto Wojak specifically. He's definitely a mid laner that hasn't really drawn much attention. I don't ever think I've kind of looked at this roster and thought Wojak has been the carry, but this is a game, on this Echo where he could kind of have that role for the team alongside KDO and his Ezreal. We kind of talked about it previously, but this is definitely a version of Barrage, a composition that could pop off and take over this game. But like you said, the onus is really on Barrage to do that. Immediately, Proxy and Chromax going in on KDO, but Proxy takes so much damage in return here and forcing out the exhaust straight up, and KDO trying to trade back. They have forcing the flash out as well. Chromax goes back in. Oh, first blood. What on earth was that level 1?
I mean, it was just messy from both sides there. Proxy and Chromax not being on the same target is huge because obviously the CC from Chromax adds stacks for Kai'Sa to execute on. But then KDO and Alpaca just seemed very split up. Alpaca overextended, then KDO did. And as much as you started to chunk them out, they just went way too far and ended up going down. So messy from both sides, but ultimately Demise managed to come ahead. And I do like the fact that they try to challenge us from level 1 because that is what you want to do in these lanes. And Alpaca being flashless is huge because it means you always have an avenue to punish in that regard.
So it's an immediately good start here for the Demise side of things. A lot of summoners burnt. KDO still does have his flash available, but that's not the start that you would have wanted for Barrage. You talked about the need for Barrage to be able to just kind of get snowballing, take over the game. Where is that going to have to come from now? Does it feel like bot lane's going to be the answer here? Is it kind of utilizing that Sejuani with the melee mid laner and just pairing up, trying to get some kind of advantage over Beely?
Yeah, literally. I mean, it's finding the priority for Wojaks and then leaning him into the jungle. Threaten the Karthus, try and find all-ins, because you see now Karthus already having a CS lead over the Sejuani. You see the fact that Sejuani wanted to lean bot lane to ensure his bot lane was safe, didn't get anything, and it's just a situation where PFI are level up already, feeling super confident in this matchup, and I can't emphasize this enough. There is small windows for Barrage. They need to start finding some advantages somewhere, otherwise Demise will just come out really clean in this game.
PFI off to it's actually very anti-PFI style jungler, by the way. We talked a little bit about that. Rifty going very aggressive onto Akkas. Level 3 versus level 4, and Afroboy is there. Rifty probably going to get chased down. Teleport will actually buy him his life. Beely coming to the rescue. PFI will trade off by taking and absorbing those mid lane minions. But Rifty going for a 1v1 very aggressively without the support of vision control and being a level down. That's kind of a classic Rifty right there.
Yeah, a little bit of a mistake there. Ultimately, Afroboy being there meant it could have been very bad, but Rifty does get far enough away that they won't bother to chase. And ultimately, Beely's teleport seems a bit weird, but he doesn't miss much. He was coming back from base anyway. And if you look at the spot of the wave in top lane, Rifty's now very safe. The wave is frozen in front of the tower. If you can hold that, he's in a really good spot. If you can't, then he's still got a bit of time before it bounces out and he needs assistance from PFI. So give him some breathing room ultimately.
Oh, look at this. Proxy and Chromax just zoning KDO and Alpaca away. Now, it's a big wave that's bouncing towards them. They should be perfectly fine. They're not going to lose a huge amount from this, but you just feel that the pressure is there for the Demise roster, and that could result in an early dragon as well. Karthus one of those junglers that can sort of take an early dragon with the right kind of setups in the lane.
Yeah, obviously has such good single target damage for it, but ultimately we're not seeing a reset come out yet from PFI. He's been farming super heavily. He's low on mana. He doesn't have any items. I think because of that, they can't really go for the dragon in this situation, even though they would have the setup to do so. But we're seeing a reset coming now, so likely going to see both teams look to... I mean, sorry, specifically Demise, both sides of it, PFI and Proxy, get their resets off, get their items, and then look to head towards that dragon.
Another question mark that I think has kind of been asked of this Demise roster is Beely coming in. Obviously, he was a replacement for their mid lane, and he's kind of really shown up, I think, when Demise needed it most. On Azir here, what have you thought of Beely's performances in the UKLC so far?
I think sometimes he's looked good, but I think, you know, for me, Beely had improved a lot last time he played in the UKLC, and we haven't seen that improvements reflected here. I think he's struggled really to show the same impact. He's been solid, but he hasn't been anything particularly special for Demise yet, and I'm hoping that we get to see the Beely who we saw grow in the league for such a long time before.
Yeah, I feel the way I think about Beely is I think he's like good, but often I feel like he's stuck. I feel like he's stuck in lane sometimes. I feel like he doesn't have the same kind of impact across the map that some of the other mid laners do. Just whenever I see Beely, I often see him in mid lane in one form or another. He's kind of more reluctant to make the roams across the map and impact bot lane and impact top when he needs to. You know, that's kind of the way that I've seen Beely perform so far, and that's been okay for Demise specifically because the rest of the team has really stepped up. But yeah, just haven't been super kind of enthused with Beely as Rifty does go down here. A lot of attention being thrown down by Afroboy to the top side of the map here to put Rifty under pressure,
which I think is good. Again, if you have a strong Wukong, it's going to give you a solid win condition in the team fight. Rifty is playing pretty aggressive in this matchup, and there's an opportunity to punish, so I think why not? Essentially, you want to play around these solo laners. That's why you take the Sejuani in this situation.
And actually, Aka's getting a pretty solid lead against Rifty here. I think Rifty needs to keep his head in this situation. I think one of the ways that you're going to gift Barrage a bit of an advantage here is if you just constantly throw away advantages in the side lane. Or constantly throw away kind of anything in the side lane, realistically. Because right there, Rifty was full on in a 1v1 with him, down in CS. Didn't really feel like he had the major advantage in the 1v1 in that scenario either. And that is the kind of play that you want to kind of avoid if you're Demise. You don't want to give Akaz an unnecessary lead, because a fed Wukong is very scary.
Absolutely is. And it can be a massive threat for the backline of Demise. You know, the likes of Beely and Proxy, potentially PFI as well. If you can burst them and get away, it can be a massive asset. But the question is going to be, will it be enough? And so far it's a 1-0 Wukong. It's nice, but it's nothing super significant yet.
Rifty still, I mean, he knows the limits. I mean, I've got to say, you know, he understands even at a level down, even with a pretty serious item disadvantage, he's still able to take those engages because of how strong Jax is as a 1v1 duelist. Now, Afroboy down on the bot side of the map, that should give enough cause for Demise to go straight for this Rift Herald. So even though they are investing resources into getting Rifty down, they are losing pressure where it counts in terms of neutral objectives.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that when you're going for those top lane ganks, that's fine if you're getting them for nothing. But when you're trading for the likes of a Herald, not really a good trade to be making, especially when we talked about the importance of early momentum for Barrage. This is going to hinder it massively. And they know this going down, they just can't really do anything about it.
Well, I mean, at least Afroboy's trading some camps on the blue side of the jungle here. He's now going to be looking for a potential bot lane tower dive. Flash in from Rifty. Aka's immediately there. There's the Karthus ultimate coming through. Can Rifty get at least one? He can. And Afroboy should be able to trade back. Wojaks is coming down. This will eventually be a kill. Rifty will not have the stun available. Although I say that, he's actually
He's
buying
clearing
a
the
lot of
wave,
space.
yeah.
He's clearing the wave.
I mean, a bare minimum, even if he goes down regardless here, he's buying so much time in this situation. And he traded 1 for 1. I mean, they've just backed away. This is just a huge win for Rifty there. And that's the power of the Karthus, offering that assistance from a long distance away. Rifty seeks out Akers, kills him in the 1v1, and that allows the team to get so much damage on this mid tower. Just a massive win there for the side of Demise. And now Wojak.
And actually now Wojak forced the ultimate. Beely, they will get another plate from that as well. They're going to get the fourth plate on this mid lane turret just because Wojak's decided to take a bit of a riskier pathway into that mid lane, and because of that gank that Rifty essentially outplayed under the turret, Demise just get a bank load of gold off a mid lane push.
Yeah, and now it is looking really dire because you put a lot of resources in that top lane matchup. You try to put some more and it ends up backfiring. Rifty gets a kill. He managed to get that wave as well. He's still down in farm, but considering how many advantages the rest of the team have been able to get, Demise are looking really good right now. And Barrage, bit rough in all honesty. Not a great plan. I'd say the plan's okay, but just the implementation was off. And you're heavily investing in this top lane. Jax will win this 1v1 eventually. No matter what you do, there will come a point where he will win this 1v1, especially with a player like Rifty. So if that's your game plan, then it's a pretty shallow game plan.
And do you feel like that's something that happens when you go up against Demise? Like, do you feel like there's just the blinkers on when it comes to Rifty? Like, he almost demands the enemy jungler invest resources into him? Because I've seen a lot of teams do this against Rifty, and to mixed success. But in this particular scenario, not having much success at all. I feel like he's one of those top laners that just kind of almost is like a bait, you know? It's a bait to the enemy jungler to just like constantly apply pressure to him.
Well, I think it's nice to apply pressure in this situation, but people see the Rifty name and they're like, oh, well, we have to go super hard. Like, that first gank, fine. Even that second gank was fine. But then they just went way too far with it and kept committing.
Yeah, speaking of committing, that's Chromax looking for the engage onto Afroboy here. A lot of damage already going down with PFI dropping. And actually, that's a big commit by Barrage to go for this second dragon of the game. And that's a pretty good take. I mean, you'll take that. It denies the snowballing into the soul here for Demise. And they just got a little bit caught out trying to set up for that dragon.
Yeah, it's a good play. I liked KDO's aggression there and the Ezreal feeling safe to do so with the Blast Cone. And ultimately, they take PFI out. PFI isn't going to ult because no one's low enough HP. So you just cut the Karthus out of the fight. Easy dragon pickup. And it's giving them some more breathing room in this game. But as I was saying, I feel like, you know, there's a level to which you want to put pressure on Rifty. It's like you can put some pressure on so your top laner doesn't have as bad a time, but it's to an extent. If you just keep throwing everything at Rifty, it's going to get wasted. Like the big no-no for me was when they traded a pressure bot lane for the Herald. That is when you're making a big mistake.
Mm-hmm. How is Beely down? I mean, how is Beely down in experience to Wojak? I feel like Beely's not left the lane.
Maybe Wojak's clearing a jungle camp.
True.
You know, it's hard to say just in the CS numbers, ultimately. Someone could have leached as well as a factor. They are looking for Rifty now.
Afroboy again, going up towards the top side of the map. Won't actually hit the stun here, but Beely coming through. Double teleport there as well. Here comes the Karthus ultimate, and now Rifty will be able to dive away. Beely didn't quite land what he wanted to land. I think he was looking for a shuffle into the turret there, onto Akers. But the teleport did achieve what it set out to achieve, which was deny the gank.
I mean, the thing is, you trade 1 for 1 in teleports, and in the meantime, PFI is just farming. So, massive win for Demise once again in this situation.
Proxy gets a plate there. We'll take some tower shots and a bit of damage from KDO in response. The True Shot Barrage will clip Chromax, but not Proxy. And they will be forced to walk away. Bot lane engage not going in their favor.
Been a pretty slow game. I think compared to game 1, especially, it's been a lot less pace on this one. I think we're seeing both teams trying to just configure around their win conditions. But again, if it is a slower game, then I just feel like this favors Demise more and more so.
Yeah, I mean, they have the scaling, right? They've got the Azir, they've got the Karthus, Kai'Sa, an incredible scaling AD carry. You have Rifty in the side lane, always able to scale up as well. I completely agree with you. I think even if this game is slow, you look at what you're dealing with on the Demise roster. None of those champions get weaker the longer that the game goes on.
Yeah, definitely. Except maybe the Nautilus, I think obviously does fall off, but it still has that power of the CC that is valuable.
Yeah, well, I think exactly. Like, CC is one of those things you can't really put a value on.
Well,
It's really different.
I feel like you can to an extent, but he is going to go down here.
Yeah, Chromax as well. There's a teleport coming through. Actually, Demise really putting in some pressure here. Wojaks will be able to escape, although I say that. That's a flash in from Rifty. The Shurima shuffle into a 2 versus 4. Maybe not the optimum Shurima shuffle, but Beely is still going. They'll trade onto Afrid Boy. Rifty bought a lot of time there on the back line of the fight. And now PFI and Proxy coming in. And Proxy will get stopped up by the Cyclone.
I won't lie, I feel like Beely, that was a really questionable play, and that was all Rifty, just holding 3 people off 3v1. That kind of made that work, but maybe a little bit over-aggressive there. I think they wanted to turn it around after losing Chromax. A bit rough, especially considering KDO is just farming in the bot lane and is going to get that tower, so that one very much Barrage favored. A good play from them to find that capitalization on the Chromax, and just going back to the Nautilus thing, I mean, I feel like CC has its value in terms of obviously there's a lot of targets you can look to shut down. But I think the reason he falls off is just like Alpaca has the AoE shielding, and also Chromax becomes incredibly squishy late in the game because he doesn't have the gold to build like a full tank, and it gets to the point where KDO will just shred through him.
Yeah,
or, like,
no, I see
Wojaks
that.
will ult and pop him.
I've always valued CC really highly, but I guess obviously the longer it goes, the less likely he is to apply several forms of CC in his kit. So it might not even make, it might not even be worth it.
Like in the early skirmishes, having a stopwatch, having your shield means that you can get a few rotations out. But in the later game, essentially, you're going to press R, you're going to hope to hook someone, and that's possibly just going to be it, depending on how the fight goes. It is good, though, against the likes of Wojaks, and if you can get something on a KDO, it's strong. But Karma's just going to outvalue, yeah. I mean, I feel like for the most part, Demise comfortable going in the late game. Now sieging up towards mid, Barrage trying to defend. Be a bit careful here.
They have got Akkas coming through, but they'll lose the mid lane tier 1. Beely will prop down his own turret to allow the retreat to happen. They'll try and get a bit of cheeky damage in. But yeah, I actually agree with you on the assessment of that fight. Beely, like, I think he saw the opportunity. It's one of those things where the eye's bigger than the muscles, in the sense that he saw the opportunity to go for like an insane 4-man Shurima shuffle, but he didn't really calculate the fact that it was still a 2 versus 4.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. And the end result is you just gave KDO space to farm up in the bot lane, get that tower, and now Barrage feeling comfortable to contest this dragon. They've got positioning around the river. It looks like Demise aren't even offering to contest this one.
But I think that shows fairly good awareness in the sense that they don't really need to. They already took the first dragon in the game. They've already delayed the soul timer to an extent where, you know, they can afford to have another 10 minutes in this game where they scale up because they know that their scaling is so good. Although I will say their back timings here may be a little bit inappropriate. They're giving up a lot of pressure on this mid lane tier 1, and immediately the engage comes through onto Beely, who is just dead, but Rifty's there. This might be biting off more than they can chew. As the ultimate comes through, Akkas will lose his life. And Proxy is going heavy onto Afrid Boy on the side here. 1-for-1 overall, and they won't actually get the turret. But Wojaks still in the side lane, not actually in that fight.
Yeah, so because of the side laning from Wojaks, that still ends up being favorable for Barrage, but it was very messy overall. A dangerous dive to go for when you know that Demise are resetting. That could have been a lot worse for the side of Barrage. Sorry, not resetting, but coming back from that reset. So they had the numbers around mid. They got the pick on a Beely, but it wasn't super free. It definitely could have been turned out around more so. And I think Barrage have to sort of see themselves as being quite lucky that things didn't go quite as bad as it could have.
And their main goal was trying to set up for that mid lane tier 1. Like, usually when you go for a mid lane dive, you're looking for it to be decisive enough that you can come away with the turret as well. And in that particular instance, it's not the case. Still, no major advantages built up for either squad. You know, despite some of these mutual objectives going down, it's really only about 1,000 gold separating these two teams. But I think, you know, if you're to reflect on that, you know, we've said it throughout the game, that does favor Demise, realistically. Just if we're looking at, if we're avoiding teamfight mechanics, we're avoiding mistakes, we're avoiding, you know, picks, it does favor Demise in pure scaling. So that they're not worried at this stage in the game that they aren't, like, that they're not exactly having a huge lead. Because if they're even at 20 minutes into the game with the comp that they've got, they probably call that a success.
Yeah, they're fine with that. I think the only concern is like the big spikes for Barrage, but you can match a lot of them. You know, there's big spikes for the Karthus, there's big spikes for the likes of the Azir and the Kai'Sa. You're gonna be a little bit behind in terms of the Kai'Sa, but you're not super worried. I think you're happy to sort of take this one, just handle the pressure in the mid game. Big thing's gonna be this dragon though in 2 minutes 50, whether they want to contest that one, because I can see them definitely going for it, but if they give it up again, I can understand that sort of mindset as well. But I think it's showing a lot of restraint for the side of Demise. I think an issue we'd had is they kind of lacked consistency across the board. And this has shown they're working a lot more as a team who are making decisions rather than just 5 players who are just trying to play the game.
Looks like Barrage are really committing to this kind of like 1-3-1, especially like side lane pressure with Wojux. Wojux has definitely been the man driving these side lane waves into the tier 2s. How do Demise deal with that? Because it feels like Wojux actually has the edge in a lot of these matchups in the 1v1 right now. And he's kind of utilizing that to get pressure in the side lanes. Beely now drawn out towards the top side of the map. Who does this favor, realistically? It feels like Barrage have got a little bit of an opportunity here to actually make and make good on one of their win conditions.
Well, I think the thing is the 1-3-1 favors Barrage, but the 4-1 favors Demise. Especially later the game gets, Rifty will get stronger and stronger. And it's not too much of an issue sending the Azir up to top lane, because if you're playing around the Baron, seen an all in here.
Yeah, Rifty will have that ability to jump over and actually find the burst onto Akka's. Alpaca will be enough to dissuade Rifty. Flash for flash at the end of the day. And I honestly, you know, if Rifty's going to stay in the side lane and we're comparing team fights, genuinely feel like the flash of Akka's is pretty impactful.
Yeah, I think it's more valuable. Obviously, you do lose the Karthus ult, so that's probably the bigger factor in that one that puts it in Barrage's favor. But ultimately, this is what we're seeing. We see Rifty putting a lot of pressure in that side lane. And here is the problem for Barrage, is that Wojux can't go against Rifty, right? He's not going to have fun in that matchup. So Wojux has to go into the short lane, which is next to the objective. So when he's top, he's so close to that Baron that, you know, there's not too much concern. Beely can just walk over, clear the wave, walk back. And it's not like he's distant on the map. So it means there's not too much threat coming out from Barrage's 1-3-1. As much as you've seen a bit of pressure, I don't think it's going to be enough to really challenge Demise unless we saw a bigger lead from Wojux. And you can see that now the objective focuses on the dragon that's spawning in 40 seconds. Rifty goes up towards top side, and Wojux won't walk near him because he knows that's suicide. So essentially, this is the problem with the 1-3-1 win condition from Barrage Academy, is that Rifty being on the Jax answers it pretty handily.
Wojux did step up just a little bit, though. We're already taking damage. Rifty looking for the 1v1. Won't have the flash available. And Wojux will be forced to use the ultimate 15 seconds before this dragon spawns. Rifty already looking to lay down punishment in that 1v1. Wojux just bit off more than he can chew, and Rifty punished him very quickly. Yeah,
and with no Zhonya's, no ult, Wojux playing this team fight is going to be very difficult, especially against the likes of a Nautilus. So it feels like Barrage Academy just opting out of the dragon. It's just gone.
Yeah, but they're going for the mid lane tier 1, which is maybe more important to them overall. It is only second dragon in the game, of course, for either squad.
I would say the dragon's more important. The tower's always going to be there. You know, you can always take the tower. Once that dragon's gone, you have to wait 5 minutes for the next one. We are now going to be, you know, 30 plus minutes before we get a soul from Barrage Academy. And it's a mountain soul, which is one of the... I mean, I guess it's decent here against the likes of PFI, but it's one of the weakest souls to scale into the game. So, you know, your 1-3-1 win condition is struggling. Your soul condition is now struggling. It's just another thing down the window. Getting the mid lane tower, as much as it's valuable, isn't going to change the state of the game, but losing that dragon might just do so.
Makes a lot of sense. I always put like huge value on the mid lane tier 1, but you know, I guess you're right. You know, that would have been third dragon for Barrage if they got it. Now Rifty going to be the target. Akka's was waiting for it. Immediately flushes in from Afro Boy, and try as you might, Rifty, I think this one is going to be very difficult to escape from. Barrage will pick up that kill on Rifty in the side lane here, but they can't. I don't really think they can convert on it right now. They're just not in the position to do so.
No, it was a good play, though. And ultimately, Rifty made a mistake there by overstepping when he knew his team was on full reset. So that was a great window to go for it. And it's a nice play from Barrage, but ultimately, as you said, doesn't really translate into anything other than Akka's been able to push up and apply a bit more pressure.
Beely doesn't want to get too close to Wojux in the sideline, just like the same way that Wojux doesn't really want to get too close to Rifty. But Beely doesn't need to. He just needs to sit there and clear waves. PFI is going to just clear this out, prevent Akka's from going for the tier 2.
And that's the thing.
PFI is...
I was going to say, that's the thing. That's the game changes drastically if Wojux can dive Beely and one-shot him, or if Wojux is strong enough to 1v1 Jax. That is where this game just becomes really hard for Demise. But we didn't get that point. That's why I was saying the mid jungle is really important, because you want to set Wojux up, because if the Echo gets fed, this game changes completely and the pressure does become on Demise. But in the current state, as you said, Beely can just wave clear a tower. He's not really scared of getting dived at this point. And again, Wojux doesn't want to match up against Rifty. So it makes it very easy going for Demise, especially after they got that dragon. And again, Barrage, I'm looking at them to be making the proactive plays. If you wait, you're just going to lose.
I mean, we're at 25 minutes into the game. What proactive plays do Barrage have left? Is it going to be centered around the next 2 dragons, centered around the Baron? Like, what are we looking for? What signals do we need to look out for Barrage when it comes to making a winning play for their team?
I think a pick is a really good thing that you can find if you get a good Sejuani ult or maybe a one-shot from Wojux. And then a flank in the team fight. If you play for that dragon team fight, you get a good flank, you get a good enough win in the team fight, you can potentially just go straight to Baron. And I think that's a critical thing, is getting like backline access onto the Azir with the likes of... I'm not sure. Nice try, KDO. If you get good backline access from the likes of the Echo or the Wukong, that's where you can start to come ahead in team fights. But you need to make it very fast, very snappy, because the extended fights are not going to be fun for Barrage.
Not much vision control on the red side jungle here for Demise. You can see how tame they are approaching Afroboy sat in that red buff area. No risks being taken by this roster. They know they don't have the vision around that Baron. They're confident that it's not being started because they've got those wards on outside the pit, but they should see this going down now. They have just scouted it out, and the Baron has been started up very quickly.
Yeah, it's kind of dangerous here up against the Kai'Sa. That's why they're just moving it up slowly, but they have a lot of poke, a lot of damage threat with the Karthus ult as well. Rifty engages Akaz, so Akaz can't join, and also has his ult in. And essentially, I mean, this is the thing with Kai'Sa, is that the range you need to get up to see the Baron is so much longer, because you can just fire the Void Seekers out. They have Blue Trinkets as well. They did end up using both of those, but essentially they stop the threat.
Oh, Rifty actually takes the red buff away. KDO. Exactly, yeah. KDO just helps him out ever so slightly. Rifty not actually tagged up by the wards in the red side jungle for Barrage, and he'll take that small advantage from the 1v1. And like he said, like, we're getting towards that point in the game now that Rifty should have the Blade of the Ruined King finished up. That 2-item spike's going to be pretty difficult for Akaz to deal with, and he's going to slowly just edge out in this side lane matchup. Now, the dragon is starting. I would not be surprised to see Rifty head towards the top side of the map here, or maybe even just come down to join the fight. He looks like he's heading straight down mid lane in this scenario.
I think he's just looking at group, looking for the engage.
Oh, Chromax throws out the ultimate here. The disengaged Sejuani will be enough to stop that going on. And now Akaz. This is a good Cyclone opportunity here. He has the option to jump in, will go forward. Wojux diving to the backline. PFI going to be the target, but it's okay if he dies first, as Beely tries to shuffle and does, but will lose his life in the process. But the front line's still there. Rifty trying to jump onto the backline. Proxy still going. Wojux exhausted, and Rifty tearing apart the Barrage backline. Wojux the only member left alive, and Demise will take a commanding fight, and that seemed like such a good setup for Barrage too.
I mean, the flank looked like it could have been decent, but ultimately Akaz didn't have the Cyclone, wasn't able to use that. They couldn't punish the backline fast enough. Proxy survived, and then Rifty was just there to clean everything up. Dragon now picked up, and that was the moment for Barrage to really come back in this game, and missing out on it is definitely going to hurt. And now you can see Demise moving up towards that Baron, want to ensure they have control over the area.
Third dragon in the game as well. It now puts a soul timer on the board. They're actually just going to teleport straight in. Beely's going to come forward. They have got a very quick Baron take if Rifty joins. Beely's going to be quick to do so. The only problem that they're dealing with right now is there is no smite available. Now, Afroboy should get there quickly. Wojux dives in. Another Cyclone available. Chromax taken very low. The True Shot Barrage will do the work, and a little bit more than they needed to bite off here for Demise. As the shutdown comes through, they've just gifted the Baron over.
Yeah. Not sure what to make of that one. PFI might try to steal here.
Oh, he gets it! What a mad lad! The flash smite straight up from PFI. What an absolute beast. It looked effortless.
Just walking over on the Carthus. Slow and steady. I mean, I will say that was a terrible play from Demise that was saved from a beautiful smite from PFI. I don't know why you're starting the Baron in that situation. I don't know why we've seen a very patient Demise roster suddenly go, oh no, we're panicking now. They walk in the Baron, trap themselves in the pit. It's free pickings for Barrage. Barrage stopped the fight, and then they decided 50-50 at PFI. It's never a 50-50 with PFI. He just wins Smite Wars. He just always does.
Oh, what do you even say about that? He literally just flash instant smited won that. Like that was.
I mean, you had the numbers advantage. Maybe the call is just try and force the fight, take the numbers advantage, push lanes, reset. You didn't have to 50-50 there. You know, you knew Carthus was still up. You should have had his flash timed. You tried to go for that. You know, Barrage took a risk. It didn't pay off. You can always talk about should we have taken that risk in this situation. Probably not. PFI higher level and being Smite King, obviously causing issues for Barrage.
2-level advantage, I suppose, for PFI. So the Smite does do a good chunk more damage than what Afroboy could put out here. Wojox actually just walks into the stun. He literally just walked into the stun of Rifty. Now Afroboy doing a bit of a chase around here, gonna force out the ultimate from Wojox, and that's enough to force Afroboy away. It's a 4 versus 2 in the mid lane if they wanted to go for it, but it looks like the collapse is coming in from Beely, the Shurima Shuffle available. Gonna dive over the wall, the Shuffle is there, straight into the stun of Rifty. That was the execute that we're looking for, and now Afroboy, the flash may save him, but nah, it's not going to. Proxy picks up the kill, and Demise playing with their food at this point in time.
I mean, they're going fishing for a situation where you're not going to come out ahead, realistically. They have the extra stats from Baron, they have the level advantage. They're priority in the lane, so they're going to move there closer. And we've already talked about the ability of the likes of a Carthus and a Kai'Sa just to join in quickly. They didn't even need the ult there.
Even if you thought that was a clean kill, what are you attempting to do with it at this stage in the game? I mean, now they're just going for the win right now. They've got the numbers advantage at those Nexus towers. They're going to focus down the first one. Rifty on the backline just buying time to allow the rest of his team to push those turrets. And actually, Rifty even gets the kill here. Taken very low, but this should be the Nexus. Demise surely take the victory. Proxy on that Kai'Sa. Rifty will join up on the Jax, and I really don't think Afroboy can do anything to stop this. Demise take a much needed win to keep those playoff dreams alive. 3 wins in a row, Orcs. And you can see just how much this team has kind of grown from the middle of the split.
And I think it's shown that even though this was a split push Rifty situation, it wasn't we are relying on Rifty to win through split push. It felt like they had other tools to get themselves into a favorable spot. They gave Proxy a good carry for him to be relevant on. And importantly, they had the Carthus as well to back up Rifty. So it wasn't just, oh, it's the Rifty show, he does everything. It was very much a more team-oriented game, which is what we've seen from Demise. Is what I'm liking to see, and is what giving them windows. But the side of Barrage is just, it's rough to see because ultimately this team is struggling. There is signs of good teamwork from them, but they're just struggling to execute, and just individual mistakes letting them down. Realistically, I wasn't super happy with the draft, how it came out. I felt like there's a lot of burden on Wojox to get super fed, and when that never happened, it was like, cool, okay, I guess, you know, a lot of these win conditions go out the window. Like the 1-3-1 became a problem because Rifty had an answer, and then in terms of like having threat in the Azir, that just wasn't there. I just feel like maybe a better team would have implemented this comp better, but I think Barrage still need work, and I really think they need to go back to sort of easy compositions that can set themselves up for success, because their map play is good, their coordination is good. It's just, I feel like this is a bit too difficult for them to pull off.
I feel like you could tell that through some of the decisions being made, though, especially Afroboy's kind of constant want to gank Rifty, even at every stage in the game. Like that last gank on Rifty made no sense. Like, what were you hoping to achieve? Like, even if you got the kill, you're versus a late game Jax, it's going to take a while to get him down. Even if you got that kill, the rest of the enemy is like grouped up around outside your base. Like, what do you even achieve by going for that kill at that stage in the game? But you know, nonetheless, Demise showing that they've got more strings to their bow than just stick Rifty on Maokai. You know, that's one of the worries that I had. Like, is this just the case that Proxy has to be on Ashe and Rifty has to be on Maokai, and that's like what's winning them games? It looks like no. Looks like they have more in their repertoire to be able to pull out wins, and that's really important because the strength of schedule for them you know, from that point onwards, it's going to be tough for them to continue to make those kind of wins against some of the big teams, and that's the test that they're going to have over the course of the next 2 weeks. Now, we're going to go to a quick break. When we're back, we're going into another really important match, M&M Academy versus Envision. Don't go anywhere. All right, I lied to you. Not going into the next game just yet because we have a very important guest. We're going to be talking to PFI from Demise on the back of a 3-game win streak for their roster. And obviously, what we saw here was more of a kind of a return to the Demise where we have Rifty activating a side lane split push win condition. You know, it's not just Rifty on Maokai, Proxy on Ashe. That's how they're getting their wins. You know, they're showing that they've grown in the sense that they can play those team fight comps, but also they can play those split push comps. And bringing PFI in, let's start off with that game. Obviously, you guys did make a big change in playstyle last week, and it worked out really well. What was it? Just draft this time round that caused you to go back to kind of like the older version of Demise, or is it something that you just want to have, or you at least want to be able to confident that you can get a win on coming towards the sort of playoff part of the UKLC?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like after all these weeks we've like learned different playstyles, so pretty much whatever comes up in the draft we'll be able to deal with, and we'll be able to play like whatever playstyle that's set up for us.
Yeah, and in this game specifically, what drew you to because I saw Rifty hovering the Malphite for a little bit, right? He was, you know, thinking about potentially Malphite into Wukong. It's a pretty solid matchup for Rifty in that sense. But what kind of drove you to go for the Jax side lane this game?
I mean, it's just the classic, really. I mean, Rifty with red side counter pick. It's how the game's unlosable. This guy is just so crazy good at the game.
We joke about it, but we actually say red side is the demise buff. Like we say it every time it comes up in draft. We're like, this is just the demise buff. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually.
So I want to ask a bit about how is things being behind the scene? Because obviously at the start of the split, you had a pretty solid showing. Not obviously the best compared to some other teams, but then mid-split was really rough. And what were the discussions behind the team, and what steps did you take to sort of get to the point where now you're looking towards that fourth playoff spot and thinking you could potentially make it?
Yeah, I mean, we ran through some roster shuffles. Some things happened, but end of the day, I think we ended up with a pretty good roster. I think Beely is really good. I think Proxy is really good, and it ended up being like just scrims being a lot better, games being a lot better, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much to say.
So
I
to
think
branch off from that just quickly, Beely and Proxy being the new players, what do you feel like they've added to the team? Maybe not necessarily from in terms of gameplay, but like maybe communications, maybe what they sort of offer in terms of insight.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are really good. Like after the game, we have like really productive discussions. They're both just got good game knowledge. So it's pretty easy to learn from scrims with these players.
And sort of what level of teams are you actually scrimming right now? Because when we talk to some of the NLC teams like Fnatic Academy, they're scrimming LEC teams, and they're saying they're finding success there. What level of teams do the UKLC guys scrim? Is it just UKLC levels? Are you going into other ERL teams? Like, are you facing up against any NLC teams?
Can't say who we're facing exactly, but we're definitely
Sure.
facing higher competition than we're playing against in UKLC. I'll say that for sure.
So not NA
That's fair.
teams.
Okay, yeah. No way.
Oh, PFI, it's really nice to talk to you, mate. Thank you for joining us, and I hope we get to see you more. And again, really good luck for the following games. Obviously, you're contesting that fourth playoff spot, and I think you're definitely within a shout if you can continue the win streak that you've got. Cheers for joining us, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Peace.
Cheers.
All right, now I'm not going to lie to you guys. After the break, we have our third game of the night, M&M versus Envision.